Months later, Governor Newsom, where's it at? Because the truth is free, but the lie can be very expensive. And right now, fire survivors want to know what happened to No Strings Attached. And I've been saying on this mic for the past 18 months, somebody or somebodies didn't do their job. Now it's documented. Governor Newsom, listen closely. You didn't do your job. You didn't keep your promise. You held up the bill. Now stop holding up the money. You said no strings attached. Instead, you played on the people's heartstrings. Where's it at? See, Governor Newsom, even at the French Laundry, if it don't come out in the wash, it's sure enough gonna come out in the rinse, and the rinse cycle is here. With the KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm James Farr, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA, Talk 1580, download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It's Thought-Provoking Thursdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. And our regular contributor in the first hour is Atiba, former Deputy Executive Director for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators, Strategic Alliance Consultant, and President of Party Politics US. He's presently leading an effort across this country to encourage people to understand that midterms effing matter. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and Thought-Provoking Thursday. Conversation with Atiba.
Jesse, it's great to be with you. Another Thursday. Love having these conversations with you.
Brother, I sure appreciate it. Why don't we start with the Knicks? What's your big takeaway?
Oh my God. I feel like there's so much to unpack with that game. Last night, I'm not going to lie, I went to sleep at halftime. I thought the Knicks were out of it. There was no way that I thought the Knicks were going to come back. But you know what? I think that it's a lesson, one that, but it was the old saying they used to say, it ain't over till the fat lady sings. And she wasn't singing. I love the energy, and I love the fact that you have so many people, not just in MSG, but outside of MSG. We don't know what their political affiliation. We know their different ethnicities and nationalities, and they're all pointing and watching that amazing game last night. When I woke up at 12:30 this morning and saw 107, 106, and I didn't have my glasses on, I was like, whoa, am I seeing the right thing? I put my glasses on and saw that, yeah, the Knicks really, they came back, and it's just amazing, amazing, amazing.
I thought the composure of the young men who participated in that contest last night was nothing short of extraordinary. You've got the MSG fans, you've got the most known sporting event in the most known sporting arena on planet Earth, and yet you have some men in their teens, some men in their early to mid 20s, just a few of them, I think, in their 30s, and the entire world is watching them. It says a lot, doesn't it, Atiba?
It says so much, and I'm glad you said that, because I'll be here's me being honest again. I was getting a little disgruntled with, or not as excited about watching basketball as I have in the past, because it felt like there wasn't the same hunger from the players. These players are proving that that hunger is still there. They are fighting, and for whatever you want to say about how San Antonio lost, why San Antonio lost. They're giving it everything that they have, and they're on the biggest stage in the world right now, playing right on the week that the World Cup is starting. It's teenagers, 20s, all of it. It's really exciting to watch. I'm very excited, and I'm very excited to see not just how this finals goes, but the rest of how their careers are going to go from here.
Atiba, wouldn't you agree that the fans really are the sixth man in a home game?
They absolutely are the sixth man, and we're going to see on Saturday night those San Antonio Spurs fans show up. I will say, and I don't want to go negative on this though, is that said this before we came on, that sports is like a metaphor for life. We've known this for a long time. That some of the actions too of some of the fans in New York has been, and it's just it's not many, it's just a small number, but throwing eggs at Wemby yesterday was just, it's just uncalled for. We've got to get back to get to just the better parts of us, and the enjoyment of being able to be engaged and to see those fans react the way that they did yesterday was very empowering and very electric.
Yeah, as for the egg throwing, we're bigger than that. but I can share with you that just a couple of days before, they had a unique opportunity. In fact, a rare opportunity to throw eggs at the president of the United States, and they chose not, they chose
I'm
not to
glad
do
they
it.
didn't.
I'm Jesse
glad they
Jackson
didn't.
Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and our conversation with the team. More when we come forward right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Junior Show. King Volley drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We are in conversation this Thursday on Thought Provoking Thursdays with Atiba. Atiba is the former Deputy Executive Director for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. He's worked as a TV political contributor for BNC News, The Heat, In the Know with Mo, The Leslie Marshall Show, iHeartRadio, and GovExec 96.3 WHUR, and the One America News Network. Atiba, welcome forward to the show.
Hey, Jesse.
Atiba, some initial thoughts about Carmelo Anthony in that case?
Initial thought is just sad, and my thoughts and prayers go out to his family. You know, we've seen people, because we just saw Cyrus, Carmack, Belton, that decision come down with someone saying that they were protecting themselves, and Carmelo's defense was that he was protecting himself. And, you know, my initial thought is there's a reckoning that's happening right now. And it's not just, you know I talk a lot about voting. It's not just about voting. And I wish that I had an immediate answer to it. But I do know that a lot of this is because we are not looking at each other as human beings. And I know that there are a lot of people in the African American community in particular that feel that way, and rightfully so.
You know, I've always been taught when I was growing up by my parents that young Black men are targets. That the way in which we are seen, the way in which television and media projects us as less intelligent than we are, less hardworking than we work, less patriotic than we are. And yet, overwhelmingly on the news are the negative stereotypes, the perceptions, the absence of justice in many cases, the inability to speak for ourselves and articulate who we are as Black men. We get these examples that are sometimes deeply troubling. Some of them are just blatantly outside of the scope of human decency. You can see the nature of the discrimination, the nature of the racism, the nature of the, if you will, the male Negro phobia, the fear of Black men that drives a narrative in this country. Atiba, is there a way out to just see each other as human beings, or is this the context that we will always find ourselves in?
So I want to go back and say, because, you know, two families are affected by this or impacted by this, and that seems to be the case too often. So I don't want to, you know, diminish also the value of the other life, but I also don't want to diminish in terms of what led to all this. I think that it's all of it is something that we all as Americans, as humans, should be looking at in terms of, you know, I feel like, you know, when you introduced this segment, you mentioned that I was on BNC News. And one of the things on BNC News, it felt like too often on Black News Channel, we were talking about young men who had been killed. In that case, it was often by police officers, and how we are looked at in this country. Now, I'm going to say something that is probably not going to be very popular, but I feel that I can't say one without saying the other. And part of that is that how people look at us also is contingent upon how we not only imagine ourselves, but how we put ourselves forward. And I say this to say that there's been a culture within our country where I feel like that when I think back to the 60s and I think about wear your Sunday best when you went to march, and I look at how I see certain things today that are necessarily in our best, putting ourselves in our best image. So I want to say that first. But the second thing is that regardless of what you wear and who you are, that looking at each other as human beings, one is just being able to look each other in the eye and being able to see each other from a heart standpoint as opposed to from a skin standpoint. And there's too often that we're looking at each other, all of us, from a skin standpoint, because there are too many issues in our tissues, too many things from our past. And we're looking at things in its present form right now without looking back at the past in terms of how we got here. That's why, Jesse, week in and week out, I'm asking and I'm saying, when we talk about voting and we're talking about the redistricting issues, that we have to look back to the past and remember and see how we got here, because too often we can point the finger, but often we're not looking back at ourselves, at our own reflection, and wondering, did I do something to get us here? And I know that in a large part that there is a culture, there is a caste system in this country that has placed us in a certain place. And too often, I feel like we are inserting and putting ourselves there ourselves because we continue to harp so much on our blackness that we don't focus more enough on our human beingness and about what it is to being human. And I know that's a lot to kind of try to unpack, but I just think that there are other things too that we all have to be looking at ourselves and looking at, why did they look at the president of the United States and Barack Obama and his family living in the plantation house, which is the president's house? Why do they look at him so way? Because they looked at him in a way that they had a hard time seeing his humanity, because he didn't look like the way that they want us to be portrayed, and the way that often in culture, what have you, we are seen.
I want to juxtapose that against the first segment where we talked about the Knicks, because on the one hand, the nation is celebrating us. It's celebrating the excellence, resilience, the perseverance of both the New York Knicks and the San Antonio Spurs. And of course, these teams are largely dominated by our children. Now, I'm 61 years old, so I can look at a 20-year-old man and say, our children, and I mean it, because that's essentially who they are. But then on the other hand, when we move beyond the sports page or beyond the celebratory moment of professional basketball, the politics of the celebratory moment are not as celebrated as the moments when there seems to be these ethical, these moral, these collapses that the criminal justice system often portrays as the images of who we are. We're just as much as Knicks and Spurs as we are anything else. And again, I am not pointing the finger or making judgment one way or the other about the young brothers who are and their families who are experiencing the tragedy. I'm only making the point that America has a duality when it comes to us. 1 minute they're cheering us. I'm sitting here looking at Marissa Hargitay on the bench. And at courtside in the basketball game, enjoying Law and Order and SVU every single night. And I saw some funny posts on social media saying, why don't they just go upstairs and arrest the president? A special victims unit should go. He's sitting right there. Go get him,
I did not see that. I did not see that.
And her co-star was sitting with her. It's like, come on, guys, put the bracelets on them. Anyway,
Right.
With that said, how we are portrayed, requires a consciousness. Atiba, you talk about that consciousness, how we carry ourselves, and exactly how we already know what the society is going to say about us if we find ourselves in any kind of controversy or running afoul of the law.
Yeah, and it's funny, and thank you for I'm so glad we started off talking about the Knicks, because it's such a great story. But let's also think about, we've always been celebrated when we are entertaining.
Yeah,
it's okay when we're the entertainers, when we're entertaining. It's when those players step outside of that and speak to what's happening in the culture, what's happening in the country. what's happening to people that then people say, oh, that's not your place. Your place is entertainment. So, it's or sports. And so, we saw that with Colin Kaepernick, simply taking a knee, just to say like, hey, stop, see us, see me. And so, but I look at we've talked a few weeks ago, and I talked about an instance or something that happened when I was in Washington, D.C. And then we've heard about what's going on in Chicago and other places around the country. And the reality is that within, whether or not it's not just portrayed because the media the media is part of it. The media does create this. I don't know if you call it an echo chamber, but shines a light on the things that are happening within our inner cities. But not enough of us are, I think, talking about how do we figure out how to stop some of what's going on within these cities. Because one of the things that's really tearing in my heart is these teen takeovers. And that's this, and I don't want you or anyone to think that, hey, I'm laying the blame on us, because there's been Plymouth Rock landed on us. But at the same time, it's how through faith, how through struggle, how through what we saw the Knicks do last night of not giving up to get that win, how are we pushing and staying together and locking arms together like we did walking across the Edmund Pettus Bridge to get voting rights? How are we reinstituting and going back to that type of idea of being one and being together, as opposed to the individualism that this country creates, where it's me, me, me. But the country is stronger when we're talking about not just the Black community, the Hispanic community, the white community, the Asian community. The country is stronger when we're talking about we, and that when we are together, then we as a country are stronger. And I just want to just highlight something, because this week, just reading through some things, it's just really interesting when you look at this racial construct in America, how and why it was deliberately constructed to justify the enslavement of Africans and the displacement of Native American people by uniting a fractured European class. And this goes back to the 1600s. So what I like to do and try to say is, how are we going back and seeing how we got here, and not just pointing the finger, but figuring out how do we get out of it and how do we solve it? And I don't think we can solve it without going back and looking at how we got here.
It's Thought-Provoking Thursdays. We're going to go back with the Tebow when we come forward. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Chicago Public Schools CEO Dr. Macklin King, who is Black, is defending district policies supporting African American and transgender students.
CPS is in compliance with all local, state, and binding federal law.
While testifying before a Republican-led congressional committee, King said CPS follows local, state, and federal law. She also defended the Black Student Success Program as the Trump administration withholds $8 million in magnet school grants over those policies. Attorneys for Carmelo Anthony, a Black Texas high school track star, are appealing his murder conviction. He was sentenced to 35 years for fatally stabbing Austin Metcalf during a fight at a track meet last year in Frisco, Texas. No charges will be filed against Chris Brown's security guard after he fired an air gun outside of the singer's home in California. The May 1st incident happened during an altercation with a woman outside of Brown's home. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Wild Rivers is now open daily with over 25 slides and attractions for thrill seekers and lazy river chillers. Visit wildrivers.com for great values on season passes and daily tickets. That's wildrivers.com. Wild Rivers, where there's sun and fun for everyone.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A 29-point comeback Wednesday night at Madison Square Garden put the New York Knicks in the NBA record book. The comeback also put the Knicks one win away from their first NBA championship since 1973. A dramatic tip-in by OG Anunoby with 1.2 seconds left in the fourth quarter gave the Knicks a 107-106 victory over the San Antonio Spurs in Game 4 of the NBA Finals. Anunoby is the new hero in New York City with a game-high 33 points. The Knicks have a 3-1 lead in the best of 7. They can win the title with a victory in Game 5 Saturday in San Antonio. The Knicks were down by 27 at halftime and by 29 early in the third quarter. Erasing a 29-point deficit is the largest comeback in NBA Finals history. The previous record was a 24-point comeback by the Boston Celtics when they battled back against the Lakers in the 2008 NBA Finals. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Where the overlooked become unmissable, this is KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Brothers and sisters, you have something to say, and we want to hear it. KBLA Talk 1580 is engagement radio, not outrage radio. A place where your hopes, your frustrations, and your ideas are welcome 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Real talk, real people, real Los Angeles. KBLA Talk 1580, the station that sounds like the city looks. Tune in on your AM radio dial at 1580. Download our free KBLA 1580 app or listen live on our website at KBLA1580.com.
Unapologetically progressive.
All I need is one mic.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. We continue our look at what is happening and what is not happening along the Destination Crenshaw corridor. Last time we talked about the promises made to this community. Today we talk about the reality on the ground, and it is not pretty. Let's start with something as basic as a visit to the vet. Customers of the local veterinary clinic right next door to this studio are forced to park blocks away and carry their sick and injured animals through conditions that no pet owner or sick animal should have to endure. Why? Because the construction has blocked access to the vet's parking lot for years now. The vet is losing clients, the vet is losing revenue, and frankly, who can blame these customers for not coming back? This is but one example of a small Black-owned business being quietly strangled, and nobody at City Hall seems to notice or care. And the conditions along this corridor, they are not just an eyesore, they are a health hazard. Unsanitary conditions and repeated health code violations are doing exactly what you would expect, inviting vermin into our neighborhood. Rodents, pests, the kind of infestation that does not stay in one place. It spreads into homes, into restaurants, into our daily lives for years now. Then there is this. The houseless are finding refuge in the construction cubbyholes and unfinished spaces left wide open along this project. These are precious human beings, to be sure, in desperate situations. But this is also a safety and liability crisis that the city created and has yet to address for years now. In our prior editorial, trying to save some space for Grace, we did not call his name. But after a full week of running the editorial hourly, highlighting the myriad delays, business losses, health violations, safety concerns, and more, we have heard absolutely nothing from City Council President Marquise Harris Dawson. Nothing. Not a word. The council member who represents this district has gone silent. You see why we call this project Procrastination Crenshaw? And so I repeat, Crenshaw deserves better. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. As always, we welcome your feedback.
that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
It's Thought Provoking Thursdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You are listening to Thought Provoking Thursdays and our conversation with Atiba on KBLA Talk 1580. Atiba, how are you, brother?
I'm good, Jesse. Good to be here.
Atiba, in the last segment, in order to come forward, you said that we first have to look and or go backwards. Atiba, help us understand your thinking in this space.
Sure. I want to share Carter G. Woodson's a quote from Miseducation of the Negro. He says, if you can control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his action. When you determine what a man shall think, you do not have to concern yourself with what he will do. If you make a man feel that he is inferior, you do not have to compel him to accept an inferior status, for he will seek it for himself. If you make a man think that he is unjustly an outcast, you do not have to order him to the back door. He will go without being told, and if there is no back door, his very nature will demand one. I use this when I think about, a lot of the things that are going on and how often, the last few shows we've been talking about what's happening in the South and what's happening with redistricting. We're talking about, all these different things that keep happening. And while many of us can see and that we didn't bring this on, but what we have done is become so possessive in terms of the idea that we have a Black community, but we want to be recognized as Black Americans, not just as an American. And I'd say that because it's not just about, for me personally, wanting to be recognized as American. It's me thinking about my ancestors working in the fields and believing that they weren't seeking to be a free Black person. They were looking just to be a free human being. And so when I said in one of the earlier segments that within this country that there is a caste system that we're living in, and within that caste system, that if you look back to the 1600s, to slavery then in the colonies, that those people who were working in the 1600s were not recognized by race. They were recognized by their religion or their nationality. And that was until there was a rebellion. And you may recall Bacon's Rebellion. And I mention this because I want to go back to where poor indentured Europeans and enslaved Africans, slaves, revolted together against wealthy Virginia landowners who then realized the danger of a united working class. Now, if you bring that forward and you look at all these different things that are going on within our culture, within our American society today, and how they are breaking us apart, and how in some ways we are doing the breaking for them, as opposed to looking at how all of us are impacted and affected by gas prices, high grocery prices, etc. But when we're looking at these different issues, Carmelo, Anthony, Cyrus, I don't want to keep looking at and keep saying that, oh, this is an issue where you're killing a Black kid. No, this is an issue where you're killing a human being. This is an issue where you've killed an American. This is an issue where you're saying that we are something less than. And in some ways, I feel like maybe subconsciously we're putting ourselves in that category as opposed to demanding that you see us not as a Black person. I'm demanding that you see me as a human being the same way that you want me to look at you as a human being, because in some of their actions, what they're doing is not human at all.
Well, please know that I respect that. But in the same sentence, I have to say, well, good luck with that. Because has there ever been a moment in our history here in the United States where to be Black or to be in a position of slavery, indentured servitude, some form of sharecropping, some experience from those periods of time to the present where we continue to experience various forms of discrimination? Has there ever been a moment when we have not been American? When we have not defined what it means to be an American in its truest sense? Have we not, and are we not as a people responsible for the definition of democracy? Certainly not on July 4th, 1776, but certainly by July 4th, 2026, we have had and made a contribution to this country that has made it far more democratic than the founding fathers ever could have conceived. It doesn't mean that that conception is not fragile, but it certainly means that we have participated. I can't find the moment, Atiba, where Negro in America hasn't been more American simply by his and her struggle to make this country live up to the true meaning of her creed.
It is fragile, just like the democracy is fragile. Just like, when we talk about how, we are lamenting about how these districts became redrawn, but we're not looking back, in my opinion, at how we got here. And we got here because, in part, we took our right to vote for granted. And some of that taking it for granted, it was because those people that we elected who made promises didn't fulfill their promises. I just saw today that the Democrats are now getting split yet again on what should be the national message. Should the national message be about affordability? Should the national message be one about the promise of voting rights? And I'm going to say to Dems right now, if you don't figure out how to have a united message that does not just speak to one party, to one community, you have to have a message that's going to speak to the whole country. And the whole country right now is impacted by inflation. The whole country, whether or not you're a farmer or you're someone living in urban Chicago or in Washington, D.C. or New York City, all of us are impacted by these high costs. If we start going into like these other things, then you will lose this election again, and you will lose it because it will fracture the country the same way that living in Florida, I saw the commercials that were painted against the former vice president, painting her about talking about sexual orientation and transgender rights, as opposed to a message that was unifying around the whole country. First, first you got to get the power in order to be able to make the changes you want. And in order to do that, we have to figure out how we're going to be more unifying. And I want voting rights. I want laws that protect our young people, to protect all of us in terms of police officers. And I want laws that protect the police officers. But what I want is for us to figure out how we're going to do that. And it is much harder to do that when you're talking about the whole, as opposed to just talking about the part.
We're having our conversation with Atiba right here at KBLA on Thought Provoking Thursday. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions The Michael's Daughter Foundation is dedicated to inspiring youth and resilience through storytelling, arts, filmmaking, and enrichment programs for youth and families in under-resourced communities and system-impacted individuals. The Michael's Daughter Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit providing free and low-cost arts programs to youth and families from under-resourced communities, both system-impacted youth and those affected by the incarceration of a loved one. 1 in 43 children in America have a parent incarcerated. 70% of those children are expected to end up in prison. Through filmmaking, animation, theater, and writing, they help young people express themselves, build confidence, and imagine new possibilities. Beyond the arts, they offer financial literacy workshops, emergency support, and scholarships. Because thriving takes more than talent, it takes access. To learn more about the impact of Michael Daughters Foundation and how you can be a part of the movement, please visit their website, michaelsdaughterfoundation.com. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
When you turn to the Employment Development Department, we'll help you get there. Whether it's support for you and your family while you find a new job, or the resources to focus on your recovery after illness or injury, we can help you move forward. From support while you bond with your newborn, to helping serve your family while your partner serves our country. Your EDD. We'll help you get there. For more information, visit edd.ca.gov.
Going to a World Cup match in LA this summer? Ditch the parking stress and ride Metro. With direct service from across LA County, it's the easy way to get there for just $1.75 each way.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Tired of being locked out of job opportunities and shut down by systemic racism? KBLA Talk 1580 stands with you in fighting for the rights of black workers, and we don't back down. The Los Angeles Black Workers Center is a dynamic alliance of workers, organized labor, community-based organizations, clergy, students, and scholars working collectively to improve the position of the black working class. The LA Black Workers Center takes a comprehensive approach to addressing the black jobs crisis. Their programs promote access to quality jobs, racial equity in hiring and retention, discrimination-free job sites, and they prepare black workers for employment in high-wage career track jobs. The LA Black Workers Center supports workers who need help protecting their rights on the job. They give workers access to quality jobs and remove systemic barriers to employment. And they are advocating for a fair deal for black workers in the new Los Angeles City Charter. To sign up for free career readiness training, get involved in organizing, or learn about union apprenticeship programs and trade registries, please visit lablackworkercenter.org. That's lablackworkercenter.org. Together, we can beat the black jobs crisis and build a more equitable Los Angeles. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Do you owe $10,000 or more in credit card debt or personal loans? With credit card debt at all-time highs, Debt Relief Advocates is urgently notifying consumers of debt relief now being made available, designed to aid consumers with out-of-control credit card debt. Those who qualify and enroll for this relief program will only have to pay back a fraction of what they owe. This is not bankruptcy or a debt consolidation loan. This is a relief program that credit card companies would rather you not know about, as it ends your debt nightmare and saves you lots of money. Consumers owing at least $10,000 in credit card debt or personal loans can now take advantage of this debt relief as the cost of living skyrockets. Debt Relief Advocates has established a relief hotline for you to call to learn what debt reduction you may qualify for, so don't wait. For this free information, call the Relief Hotline at 800-505-8991. 800-505-8991. 800-505-8991.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. At the heart of the Al Wooten Center's mission for good citizenship and academic excellence is a desire to ensure that every student avoids the kind of lifestyle and overcomes the kinds of challenges that led to the murder of Al Wooten Jr. In 1990, founder Myrtle Faye Rumpf opened the center in honor of her son's life. In 2026, they are serving more than 300 students in grades 3 through 12 annually online and on site at their youth center and other sites in the South LA area. The Al Wooten Jr. Youth Center takes a neighborhood approach to the revitalization and empowerment of a community in crisis. The Wooten Center provides free after-school and summer programs to help students in grades 3 through 12 attain grade-level proficiency and promotion, high school graduation, and college and career access and success. The Al Wooten Center focuses on academics, STEM, the arts, and so much more. Join them for an enriching experience that sparks creativity and nurtures young minds. Tap in at WootenCenter.org. That's WootenCenter.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. It's Thought-Provoking Thursdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. In the next hour, we'll be in the World House with Johnny Mack. Today, we will be discussing United Nations Resolution ARES 8250, spearheaded by Ghana. It officially recognizes the transatlantic slave trade and racialized chattel slavery as the gravest crime against humanity. It acts as a vital foundation for global reparatory justice, driving discussions on formal apologies, artifact restitution, and compensation for people of African descent. You're not going to want to miss the next conversation, beginning in about 10 minutes right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and our conversation with Atiba. Let me ask you this question as we prepare to close out this show at this hour. It seems to me that there's still a disconnect between our hope, our fears, and Tuesday's elections, from Maine to the other participating jurisdictions in Nevada and throughout our country. I know that I feel a high energy level for the general election. People are concerned and they are paying attention. But in these primaries, Atiba, I'm deeply concerned that your voices can actually be heard far louder in the primaries in choosing the direction of a district's leadership. It seems to me that the engagement in those efforts isn't reaching the standards that you and I would want at this moment.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with voter education. I think, and people are tired. Within the political sphere today, there's so much about, text messaging, money, not enough about message. And people right now are concerned about the cost of things. That's just the bottom line. That things are just way more expensive than they should be. And they already were expensive. But I don't think that people recognize or see that their police chiefs are determined by and often by who their mayors are, or that these local elections have a great deal of impact on their school districts and school funding, even in terms of healthcare. So, there's just a lot, I think, that that's not happening. And within the primary system right now, personally, I would love to see it go away. Personally, I would love to see, if you're going to run for office, just let everybody run against each other, and who has the best message and can relate to the most people, then, hopefully they're the ones who get the most votes. It's just too convoluted at this stage. And I think that the average person right now is just tired, and they're tired of all the bickering, and they want to hear somebody who's going to give them some hope.
I profoundly respect that. I do know, having experienced it myself 9 times and 17 years elected to Congress, and the one campaign that I recently lost on March 17th, that in order to project the message, it is directly tied to the money. It's money media, and message. Not necessarily in that order. I mean, the reason for running is my message. How I deliver that message, either by mailbox or by email or by text or by television or by radio or by Facebook or by Instagram, Instacart, whatever the mediums are, it all costs, Atiba. And so I think you're right. There is no doubt. What is the convincing and penetrating message, and how do we get it there is directly what is in front of us and this country and this electorate. Atiba, your thoughts, a word of hope.
Yeah, thank you. And Jesse, thank you for the opportunity to have this discussion today. And, you know, I talked a lot about Black, and I just really want us to recognize that my idea, my thought, my mindset about the word Black is that Black represents faith. And that people, we are putting our faiths in the wrong things. And this country has become so materialized that we're not looking at God enough, in my opinion, my estimation, that we're looking at ourselves and we're looking at what someone else is doing to us, and we're not looking at enough in terms of God, and maybe in terms of the context of why is it that we've had to go through so much that God hasn't put anything on our shoulders that we can't deal with, and that together we can deal with it better, stronger. We can get out of this faster. But recognizing that, as I've used Carter G. Woodson's quote before, it was to make this point that maybe in some ways we continue to embody something using this word Black, as opposed to focusing it off of us and putting it, the fact that our faith should be in God, and that the things and the struggles that we've gotten out of in this country have been because we focused on God. And that when we are taking things and saying Black movies and Black music and Black business, I know one of the reasons I get so upset about is that when I was a registered Republican, I was called a Black Republican. And as a Muslim, I've heard terms say like Black Muslim. And ultimately, I'm just a human being. And I want for others the same thing that I want for myself. And that my heart is so open that I'm willing to say some of these things that may not be necessarily popular, because I just feel like insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And I think that in 2008, and you were part of that, Jesse, that us electing the first African-American president of the United States was not an accident. And it happened because we came together. And that just like this virus that we had a few years ago that put us inside, and then George Floyd killing brought us back outside, that all of us have to figure out how we're going to come together and be a sea of people, as opposed to just being a community of one people. And that all together, I believe that the hope is that we will, as your father used to say, not only keep hope alive, but bring hope to life.
I appreciate you, Tiba, and I want you to understand and appreciate that we not only appreciate you, we respect your diversity of opinion right here at KBLA Talk 1580. We understand that our community is not a monolith, but we have people who give thought in other perspectives and other directions and other angles. Particularly grateful for your participation and our regular conversation. More on KBLA Talk 1580 will be in the World House with Johnny Mack when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Chicago Public Schools CEO Dr. Macklin King, who is Black, is defending district policies supporting African American and transgender students.
CPS is in compliance with all local, state, and binding federal law.
While testifying before a Republican-led congressional committee, King said CPS follows local, state, and federal law. She also defended the Black Student Success Program as the Trump administration withholds $8 million in magnet school grants over those policies. Attorneys for Carmelo Anthony, a Black Texas high school track star, are appealing his murder conviction. He was sentenced to 35 years for fatally stabbing Austin Metcalf during a fight at a track meet last year in Frisco, Texas. No charges will be filed against Chris Brown's security guard after he fired an air gun outside of the singer's home in California. The May 1st incident happened during an altercation with a woman outside of Brown's home. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Wild Rivers is now open daily with over 25 slides and attractions for thrill seekers and lazy river chillers. Visit wildrivers.com for great values on season passes and daily tickets. That's wildrivers.com. Wild Rivers, where there's sun and fun for everyone.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A 29-point comeback Wednesday night at Madison Square Garden put the New York Knicks in the NBA record book. The comeback also put the Knicks one win away from their first NBA championship since 1973. A dramatic tip-in by OG Anunoby with 1.2 seconds left in the fourth quarter gave the Knicks a 107-106 victory over the San Antonio Spurs in Game 4 of the NBA Finals. Anunoby is the new hero in New York City with a game-high 33 points. The Knicks have a 3-1 lead in the best of 7. They can win the title with a victory in Game 5 Saturday in San Antonio. The Knicks were down by 27 at halftime and by 29 early in the third quarter. Erasing a 29-point deficit is the largest comeback in NBA Finals history. The previous record was a 24-point comeback by the Boston Celtics when they battled back against the Lakers in the 2008 NBA Finals. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
All I need is one mic.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm James Farr. $2.5 billion. Governor Gavin Newsom said it was there for fire survivors in Altadena and the Palisades. No strings attached. That was the promise. But the burning question is, where's it at? 18 months later, an NBC4 investigation came back with the numbers. The numbers don't answer the question, they deepen it. Where's it at? About $605 million has been spent, roughly 75% still not released. Where's it at? Roughly $14 million went to CHP overtime and ICE immigration protest response for crowd control. Not rebuilding homes, not rebuilding lives, but crowd control. Where's it at? Another $13 million went to the state health department for video campaigns while fire survivors waited. While families in Altadena are still trying to put their lives back together, still trying to get housed, this is the hope gap and it's real. Where's it at? Southern California Edison is still in court, still fighting liability tied to the Eaton fire, still not accountable. Where's it at? 18 months later, Governor Newsom, where's it at? Because the truth is free, but the lie can be very expensive. And right now, fire survivors want to know what happened to no strings attached. And I've been saying on this mic for the past 18 months, somebody or somebodies didn't do their job. Now it's documented. Governor Newsom, listen closely. You didn't do your job. You didn't keep your promise. You held up the bill. Now stop holding up the money. You said no strings attached. Instead, you played on the people's heartstrings. Where's it at? See, Governor Newsom, even at the French Laundry, if it don't come out in the wash, it's sure enough gonna come out in the rinse, and the rinse cycle is here. With the KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm James Farr, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
United Nations Resolutions ARES-AD 250, spearheaded by Ghana, officially recognizes the transatlantic slave trade and racialized chattel slavery as the greatest crime against humanity. It acts as a vital foundation for global reparatory justice, driving discussions on formal apologies, artifact restitution, and compensation for people of African descent. Understanding and implementing the resolution vis-a-vis recognition, restitution, and reconstruction requires shifting focus to specific actionable frameworks. The resolution mandates that nations officially acknowledge the scale and brutality of the transatlantic slave trade. This moves beyond passive historical acknowledgement to include truth-telling initiatives, public apologies from complicit states, and updated educational curricula detailing the systemic roots of modern global inequalities. Restitution. Implementing here requires the prompt and unhindered return of looted cultural property, historical archives, and museum pieces to their countries of origin. It establishes a political and moral mandate for nations to address reparatory measures and explore compensation for descendants of African slaves. Reconstruction. Beyond historical accountability, the resolution pushes the global community to address contemporary systemic anti-Black racism on socioeconomic disparities. This means integrating the legacy of slavery into policies aimed at economic development, healthcare, and equal rights for the global diaspora. We are in the World House with none other than Dr. Johnny Mack, social entrepreneur, scholar practitioner with expertise in the subject areas of peace, conflict, and social change movements. Dr. Mack's research includes extensive study of Martin Luther King Jr.'s logic of nonviolence and the U.S. civil rights movement. He is a historian, a philosopher, a thinker. Dr. Mack, welcome forward to Worldwide with Dr. Johnny Mack.
Jesse, it's so great to be here. Thank you very much.
Johnny, the Ghanaians have obviously done it. They obviously set the framework for something very important in our global as well as our personal and cultural understanding of what's next. Johnny, break this resolution down for us and help us answer the question, with this resolution, where do we go from here?
Well, Jesse, first of all, it is the question. Recall that that was King's question in his last book, and that's where we find his discussion of the World House. So it's perfect for our conversation. This resolution that Ghana successfully tabled and managed to champion it passing as a UN resolution sets forth, as the resolution states once and for all, a recognition of the enslavement of Africans. Not only the enslavement of Africans, Jesse, but the chattel enslavement of Africans. It's one thing to be a slave, but being a slave does not necessarily mean that you are chattel. That is, that you are property owned by another human being. And so slavery is still in effect in various places around the world. But chattel slavery, not. Chattel slavery was a phenomenon specifically of that time of transatlantic slave trade. And so the resolution, somewhat controversially, as some would argue, recognizes the enslavement of Africans and chattel slavery to be the greatest crime against humanity in all of human history. And so the resolution does several things as you read it. It requires and these are key words, Jesse, it requires restitution. It requires reparations. It requires reconstruction. And I'll add another R, a fourth R. It requires recognition. So we recognize the problem. We then bring restitution and reparations, and then ultimately reconstruction.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. We're in the World House with Dr. Johnny Mack. More on a very important resolution that the country of Ghana championed at the United Nations, establishing a global framework for justice for those who have been enslaved and victims of chattel slavery. More when we come forward right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's celebrate.
Y'all did it!
Loving each other, needing each other.
Hey, Los Angeles, KBLA Talk 1580 is turning 5, and we're celebrating in a big way.
Oh my God!
Join us Friday, June 19th, Juneteenth, 4 to 7 p.m. at the Beehive for our 5th anniversary bash and Juneteenth celebration. We're talking surprise celebrity guests, a special presentation, and a major announcement you will not want to miss.
I can't wait to hear it.
Plus, live music, dancing, games, and enough food and drink to keep the party going.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Of course, you're welcome to bring your own picnic basket, blanket, and lawn chair. And the best part, it's completely free. But here's the thing. You've got to sign up in advance. Space is limited, so don't wait. Head to KBLA1580.com right now and lock in your spot. Friday, June 19th, The Beehive, KBLA Talk 1580. 5 years strong, and we're just getting started.
Happy anniversary, KBLA! Yeah, man! Brothers and sisters!
There is no denying that we've always been the conscience of this country. KBLA Talk 1580 is progressive talk radio built for our community, by our community, and with hosts who look like you, live near you, and care about what you care about. 50,000 watts of truth right here in Southern California. KBLA Talk 1580. Listen live on your AM radio dial at 1580 or stream us live on our KBLA1580.com website or on our free KBLA 1580 app.
Unapologetically progressive.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-550-9651. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-550-9651. That's 800-550-9651. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580. We are in the World House with Dr. Johnny Mack. We are discussing United Nations resolutions ARES 80-250, spearheaded by Ghana, officially recognizing the transatlantic slave trade and racialized chattel slavery as the gravest crime against humanity. Despite receiving overwhelming support, Johnny, from the African Union and CARICOM, the implementation remains, as you well know, politically complex. The measure successfully passed with 123 votes, 52 nations, including the United Kingdom and European Union members, abstaining, citing legal concerns, and 3 countries, the United States, Israel, and Argentina, voting against it due to concerns over establishing legal liability and hierarchies among crimes against humanity. Why would Israel, Argentina, and the United States abstain, Johnny?
Well, they told us why they would abstain. They are opposed to reparations, and they are opposed to establishing, I wouldn't say a hierarchy. I would say, of course, they didn't say this, but I would argue they are opposed to establishing the hierarchy that they did, that the UN did. In other words,
Why?
just
Because it places it over their present status in the hierarchy of pain, of suffering, of hurt, of crimes against humanity that happened to them, as if there are other crimes against humanity that have happened to no one else?
Well, again, there are 3 nations who objected, and they objected primarily for those 2 reasons. There are other reasons, but primarily for those 2, against paying reparations and against establishing a hierarchy. And yes, one could very logically argue that Israel feels that the Holocaust and the tragic crimes against humanity against them is the ultimate crime in history. Arguable. I'm not sure that the hierarchy is as important as recognizing crimes against humanity. Certainly, racialized slavery, Jesse, was in many respects one of the earliest in modern history documented crimes against humanity in the emerging not Renaissance. What's the word I want?
In the emerging modern republics
exactly. Thank you, Jesse.
Evolving to democracy.
Precisely. That's it. Now, I think it's also arguable, Jesse, when you think about it, Argentina had no such crime against its state, against its people. And so to answer your question, what would be their objection? Well, one, of course, is reparations. But it's also aligning, I would argue, with the United States. That is, Argentina wants to be in the favor of the current administration, in my judgment. And so as goes the United States, it seems, as goes Argentina on this important issue.
I also think Argentina was a safe haven post-World War II for Nazis.
Indeed it was.
And so, the idea that you could commit some of these grave crimes against humanity, more specifically the Jewish people, and then when the Nuremberg trials begin, when the founding of Israel and the Israeli state, as well as other countries in the world who seek reparatory damage for what happened to the Jewish people, we would find an underground railroad of Nazis going to Argentina.
That's right.
Who set up shop, were not prosecuted, did not pay their debts to society, accumulated land, wealth, opportunity, and maintained their ideological identification with Nazi Germany. Johnny, let me ask you this question. It's a UN resolution. Beyond it being a moral document, are there any parts of the resolution that are enforceable?
Well, Jesse, is there anything at all enforceable in any UN resolution? And if so, by whom? The UN was not designed, it's not a nation state, and nation states have sovereignty. What makes the UN work is something called comity, the ability and the commitment of nation states to come together as a global body and work in comity among those who are members of the nation of the UN to create a more just and peaceful world. And so that is the force behind implementing not only this, but any UN resolution.
Johnny, what would Dr. King have to say, given that he said we were integrating into a burning house? What would his reflection upon Ghana's successful resolution mean for, as you say, recognition and acknowledgement?
Yes. Well, again, this is the World House, and this is a step toward realizing Dr. King's vision of the World House. Now, Jesse, again, you mentioned 2 of the 4 words that we began our conversation with today. Those 4 R's of restitution, reparations, reconstruction, and the first was recognition. And I think King would stand behind those 4 words, all 4. First of all, recognizing the crime for what it is, a true crime against humanity. Providing restitution, restoring, and these words are key. What do we mean by restitution? We might add their reconciliation as a 5th R, and tying restitution and reconciliation together. And what we mean there, Jesse, I think, certainly what the drafters of the resolution meant is a restitution within the African community itself as a polity, as a global body, that is people of African descent, and within that body, within the broader global community. And with that, restitution becomes a reconciliation. That is, a reconciliation within the body of people of African descent, and that body within the broader global community. And then reparations to be a payment for, it is argued, what people of African descent, or Africans, suffered, Jesse, in slavery, and as a result continue to suffer. And they continue to suffer in at least 2 ways. One is the results of slavery presented benefits and burdens to the global community, where some continue to benefit from that slavery, while others continue to be burdened by that slavery. And then the second element is a more structural, institutional framework. And Jesse, this is key in what most people miss. I'm sorry to be so long-winded on this, but the question is so important. It's one thing to provide a payment for, but Jesse, how do you really quantify the suffering that people of African descent have endured as a result of racialized chattel slavery? How do you put a price on it?
In my opinion, in my mind, it's immeasurable, but just being rhetorical. Go ahead, Johnny.
But then there is the issue of where do we find this continuing and ongoing suffering? Not a chosen trauma, as Vamek Vulcan would call it, that is suffering out of memory. Again, suffering out of memory as a chosen suffering. I choose as a person of African descent to live that suffering over the 400 years of disenfranchisement and marginalization of African peoples. But then, Jesse, there's the present structural impediments to full participation in the global social order that Africans and people of African descent continue to suffer in present time. And that is another form of slavery.
You know, let me share with you an interim step, because I gave this some thought when I wrote in 2001 the book A More Perfect Union, Advancing New American Rights, and updated it in 2019. In that book, I argue not only for reparations, but I argue for it in a non-traditional form, at least initially. In America, the American slave might be the first slave in human history whose slavery was tied to constitutional government. That is, it was sanctioned by the people. And therefore, we the people have an obligation to an enhanced and increased understanding educationally of what the crime actually is. And the model that I use is when you take off from New York and you fly to San Antonio, or you fly from San Antonio to New York, you land on a runway. That's what the Spurs and what the Knicks have been doing for the last week, with a reasonable expectation that even though we're on both sides of the New York Knicks and the San Antonio Spurs, there's reasonable assurance that both teams will land on runways that have the same standard to get the players to and from the games as they do millions of customers safely. Therefore, when we watch the game, whether it's in San Antonio or it's in New York, the rules are the same, even in two different states, because it's the National Basketball Association. The rules are public. The length of the runways that they land on are public. The understanding that they have to travel between games is public. The referees are all wearing the same shirts and are disinterested in the outcome of the game, or at least they should be, unless you're president of the United States and you show up at the Knicks game and put your finger on the sixth man, which is the crowd, and turn them off, and you get booed and discourage people from enjoying the game because you're present. That happened. The reality is, Johnny, the first round of reparations is to make sure that every American in constitutional government understand the nature of the sin, the wrong, and the nature of the crime. If not, you'll just have Jesse Jackson Jr. and Johnny Mack and other participants in our program talking about it amongst ourselves. Hey, we get it. But I was walking through a small town in Virginia not long ago, outside of Dinwiddie and in Sutherland, Virginia, down catching some bass fish. And let me tell you, I had to wade through a sea of Donald Trump signs, trailer parks, just to get to this one little old bass location. And from the moment I stepped into the little bait shop and the white folks started looking at me like, Negro, you must be some kind of lost, I was saying to myself, in the 2026, we simply aren't on the same page. Their public schools are not the same as the ones that I attended or the private schools that I attended. They're not the same. They don't know the nature of the sin. And until every single American is on the same page, we can't agree on the remedy. So in constitutional slavery, the remedy comes from what? Let us first pass the 13th Amendment. Let us next pass equal protection of the law's citizenship rights. Let us next get the right to vote. And let's at least be on the same page in the Reconstruction Amendments, things that the nation cannot go back on. And let's discuss things that we need today. The right to health care, the right to a clean, safe, and sustainable environment, the right to decent, safe, and affordable housing. Hey, even the brothers and sisters that I met in Chesden, Virginia, can agree with me. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We are discussing a very important resolution that has been brought to our attention by Dr. Johnny Mack, the Ghanaian resolution to recognize slavery as one of the great crimes of human history. More on KBLA Talk 1580 in the World House when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. President Trump is downplaying the latest inflation report after consumer prices saw their biggest annual jump in 3 years last month. Virginia Democratic Senator Tim Kaine says families are feeling it in their wallets.
The war itself imposes costs.
However, President Trump says inflation will come down once the war with Iran ends. Chicago's transit leadership fight is escalating. Regional Transportation Authority Chairman Kirk Dillard says any changes to CTA executive leadership may need approval from Illinois' new Northern Illinois Transit Authority. Black Mayor Brandon Johnson is urging the CTA board to pick a permanent president. And a Texas couple will spend decades in prison for a $30 million pyramid scheme that targeted Black communities. LaShonda and Marlon Moore of Frisco were sentenced to 40 years each. Prosecutors say their blessings and no time scheme promised victims 800% returns on $1,400 investments. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Wild Rivers is now open daily with over 25 slides and attractions for thrill seekers and lazy river chillers. Visit wildrivers.com for great values on season passes and daily tickets. That's wildrivers.com. Wild Rivers, where there's sun and fun for everyone.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A 29-point comeback Wednesday night at Madison Square Garden put the New York Knicks in the NBA record book. The comeback also put the Knicks one win away from their first NBA championship since 1973. A dramatic tip-in by OG Anunoby with 1.2 seconds left in the fourth quarter gave the Knicks a 107-106 victory over the San Antonio Spurs in Game 4 of the NBA Finals. Anunoby is the new hero in New York City with a game-high 33 points. The Knicks have a 3-1 lead in the best-of-7. They can win the title with a victory in Game 5 Saturday in San Antonio. The Knicks were down by 27 at halftime and by 29 early in the third quarter. Erasing a 29-point deficit is the largest comeback in NBA Finals history. The previous record was a 24-point comeback by the Boston Celtics when they battled back against the Lakers in the 2008 NBA Finals. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Our voices aren't the minority opinion. They're the American conscience. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
This is America.
In a world full of noise, one station keeps it real. KBLA Talk 1580, where the conversation goes deeper, the voices sound like yours, and the issues that matter most to our community take center stage. Progressive, powerful, unapologetically us. Whether you're driving through the city or tuning in from your home or office, join the public square. KBLA Talk 1580, your home for talk that enlightens, encourages, and empowers. Listen live on our free KBLA 1580 app, on our website at KBLA1580.com, or on your radio dial at 1580 AM.
Unapologetically progressive.
Indeed presents hires you can't afford to get wrong, like nuclear reactor safety expert.
I disabled the backup cooling system. It was making such an annoying noise. You heard it, right? It was like,
We're on a countdown to core failure.
And you're saying we don't want that?
This is a job for sponsored jobs.
This is what happens when you don't sponsor your job on Indeed. Next time, get matched with quality candidates with Indeed sponsored jobs. Visit Indeed.com/hire now and sponsor your job today.
All I need is one mic.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. We continue our look at what is happening and what is not happening along the Destination Crenshaw corridor. Last time we talked about the promises made to this community. Today we talk about the reality on the ground, and it is not pretty. Let's start with something as basic as a visit to the vet. Customers of the local veterinary clinic right next door to this studio are forced to park blocks away and carry their sick and injured animals through conditions that no pet owner or sick animal should have to endure. Why? Because the construction has blocked access to the vet's parking lot for years now. The vet is losing clients, the vet is losing revenue, and frankly, who can blame these customers for not coming back? This is but one example of a small Black-owned business being quietly strangled and nobody at City Hall seems to notice or care. And the conditions along this corridor, they are not just an eyesore, they are a health hazard. Unsanitary conditions and repeated health code violations are doing exactly what you would expect, inviting vermin into our neighborhood. Rodents, pests, the kind of infestation that does not stay in one place. It spreads into homes, into restaurants, into our daily lives for years now. Then there is this. The houseless are finding refuge in the construction cubbyholes and unfinished spaces left wide open along this project. These are precious human beings, to be sure, in desperate situations. But this is also a safety and liability crisis that the city created and has yet to address for years now. In our prior editorial, trying to save some space for Grace, we did not call his name. But after a full week of running the editorial hourly, highlighting the myriad delays, business losses, health violations, safety concerns, and more, we have heard absolutely nothing from City Council President Marquise Harris Dawson. Nothing. Not a word. The council member who represents this district has gone silent. You see why we call this project procrastination, Crenshaw? And so I repeat, Crenshaw deserves better. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. As always, we welcome your feedback.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the need. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the need. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the final half hour of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Dr. Johnny Mack has traveled extensively throughout the Americas, Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Middle East, working in the fields of peace, development, conflict, and nonviolent social change. His seminal work, After Confrontation, Then What?, challenges the putative logic of nonviolent social change theory and practice. Particularly, he rearticulates nonviolence beyond the traditional understanding of nonviolent struggle as principally nonviolent resistance. Dr. Mack, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Good to be here, Jesse. Thank you.
Dr. Mack, I do have a question that I'd like to ask you about why Ghana? Why Ghana? Because of its historic relationship and the struggle against independence. We'll come to that in just a moment. But just before we do that, I'd like to hear how we can support your work.
Well, thank you, Jesse. Listeners can support our work at the World House Project by simply keying in those 4 words, .org, which is our website, theworldhouseproject.org. And once there, the listeners can learn much more about our work, and they can also click on that button that says donate and make a tax-deductible donation to our work. Thank you for asking.
Let me encourage all of our listeners to do just that. Johnny, why Ghana?
Well, one way of answering is why not Ghana? But Ghana was the port of transport, if you will, of slaves. And the Osu, I believe is how you pronounce it, port where slaves were harbored and transported to the United States, the Caribbean, and other parts of the world. And so it is there that that the trade began, in so many words, and it is there in so many words, with this conference that will be held next week, where it can ultimately begin the process. I won't say it can end, but where we can ultimately begin the process of ending slavery and its consequences. And Jesse, it's important, if I might add, to articulate it that way, to describe it that way. The vestiges, the consequences of slavery remain with us in so many different ways. And until we fully understand, which is why that word recognition is so important, until we fully understand the depth and breadth and even the longevity of slavery, then we can't fully remedy a 6R, its consequences on people of African descent.
Johnny, recently you returned from Cuba, and there's a lot of saber rattling going on in the United States with respect to Cuba. But this diasporatic initiative by the Ghanaians reaches the Caribbean, it reaches South Americans, and it reaches not just Americans who might have found themselves on the shores of what would become the United States, but found themselves as Afro-Colombians, Afro-Caribbeans, Afro-Argentinians, Afro-Mexicans, and yes, Afro-Cubans. Johnny?
Well, I think the point you're making there is that, of course, the slave trade dispersed Africans throughout the Western Hemisphere. And we see them from Canada down throughout South America, and particularly in the Caribbean, whichever you prefer, its consequences, its impact, and Cuba and Haiti, arguably, are two of the most significant countries for different reasons, particularly Haiti. And it's overthrowing the only country in the Western Hemisphere who was able to regain its independence as Haiti did, and continues, many argue, to suffer the consequences of that victory even to this very day.
Johnny, I am particularly amazed and particularly impressed with what the Ghanaians have done by bringing this to our consciousness. Have you, or has there been any movement by the Congressional Black Caucus or any of our representatives in the House of Representatives or in the Senate to model legislation and echo the sentiments of the Ghanaians?
Many will be participating in the conference, and specifically to your question, Jesse, I am not aware whether they have or not. I'm not suggesting that they haven't, but I am not aware of it.
I appreciate that, Johnny. Johnny, what can we do to learn more about this initiative by the Ghanaians?
It's a very important initiative, thanks to the internet and particularly the new search capabilities of AI. There's much that we can learn and understand. And I would encourage our listeners, Jesse, to do just that, and to focus particularly on those R's that you and I just talked about. Recognizing, first of all, fully recognizing what slavery is and what it did and continues to do, particularly to people of African descent and to Africa, the continent itself. So fully understanding its impact, number one. Number two, fully understanding what reconciliation, restitution, and reparations are and what they are not. And then finally, and I believe most important, is reconstruction. What do we mean by reconstruction? Reconstruction for us here in the United States has a particular meaning. Reconstruction after slavery here in the U.S. And many argue there were three reconstructions. The first, of course, 1865 to 1877, I guess. And out of that first Reconstruction, to overcome chattel slavery, we got the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. In the second Reconstruction was the Civil Rights Movement, many argue, from 1940-ish to 1970-ish. And we call that the modern Civil Rights Movement. What we got out of that Reconstruction was the Civil Rights Act, of course, the Voting Rights Act, and the Fair Housing Act. And all of those, in many respects, have virtually been overturned. And so, yes.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Johnny has a third Reconstruction in his time frame when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. At the heart of the Al Wooten Center's mission for good citizenship and academic excellence is a desire to ensure that every student avoids the kind of lifestyle and overcomes the kinds of challenges that led to the murder of Al Wooten Jr. In 1990, founder Myrtle Fay Rumpf opened the center in honor of her son's life. In 2026, they are serving more than 300 students in grades 3 through 12 annually online and on site at their youth center and other sites in the South LA area. The Al Wooten Jr. Youth Center takes a neighborhood approach to the revitalization and empowerment of a community in crisis. The Wooten Center provides free after-school and summer programs to help students in grades 3 through 12 attain grade-level proficiency and promotion, high school graduation, and college and career access and success. The Al Wooten Center focuses on academics, STEM, the arts, and so much more. Join them for an enriching experience that sparks creativity and nurtures young minds. Tap in at WootenCenter.org. That's WootenCenter.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
LADWP customers get rebates up to $1,500 when you install a qualified electric vehicle charger at your home. It's like having a gas station in your garage. Get extra savings when you combine LADWP rebates with federal tax credits on chargers installed before June 30th. Visit ladwp.com/EV today and start saving. That's ladwp.com/EV.
Did you know that $60 billion are lost every year to Medicare fraud?
If someone has been a victim of healthcare fraud, the more we talk about that this occurs, older adults will feel more comfortable about sharing their experience.
It's not about someone not being smart enough or not paying enough attention. Falling victim to fraud can happen to anyone.
If I've been scammed, if I've experienced it and I'm angry about it and I want to do something about it, then I have an opportunity to volunteer and share with other people, here's what happened to me, but it doesn't have to happen to you.
Medicare fraud hurts people, it hurts Medicare, and we need your help to make a difference.
It's powerful to be able to address an issue like Medicare fraud, and being a volunteer for SMP gives you that power to do it.
If you have passion and dedication and want to be of service, we'd love to have you join our team.
For more information or to volunteer, visit CaliforniaSMP.org.
Is reviewing life insurance on your to-do list? Now's the perfect time to add it. A friend recently told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So I bumped this up on my list and got it done. I called SelectQuote and couldn't believe how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $16 a month. My husband's also 40 and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Knowing I have this checked off my list feels amazing, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call Select
SelectQuote at 1-800-729-7070. That's 1-800-729-7070. Or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote today. That's 1-800-729-7070. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Created with a share of the 1984 Olympic Games surplus, LA 84 began operations in 1985 as a grant-making and educational foundation. Today, the LA 84 Foundation supports hundreds of nonprofit youth sports organizations throughout Southern California annually, trains coaches, commissions research, convenes conferences, and maintains the world's premier Olympic and sports library collection. They are transforming lives and communities through the power of youth sports. To find out about youth sports programs for yourself or your child, and to get information about the grants and support they offer to schools and nonprofits, or if you want to make a donation, please visit la84.org. That's la84.org. Or you can call them at 323-730-4600. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Quality drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA drop 1580. Download the app.
Tomorrow will be Fat Meat Fridays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show right here on KBLA Talk 1580 with our creator, none other than the incomparable Miss Gina Towns. She is an amazing creator, amazing personality, and I'm very much looking forward to our conversation. And I should share with you that the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show has been in Richmond, Virginia since Monday. And as soon as this show is over with Dr. Johnny Mack, the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show with Gina Towns will also be driving all the way back to Chicago. That's 13 straight hours. So when you hear us live tomorrow, it will be because we covered almost half, or at least from our perspective, of the nation. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, and Dr. Johnny Mack. Johnny, what should we be looking forward to in the not too distant future against the timeline that you were saying? And you mentioned a third Reconstruction.
I did indeed, Jesse. I'll quickly remind our listeners that the first Reconstruction was against chattel slavery, 1865 to 1877. Second Reconstruction, basically the modern civil rights movement from about 1940 to about 1970. The third Reconstruction, arguably, we are in that Reconstruction as we speak, right about 2008. Second Reconstruction was against Jim Crow. Let's summarize it that way. The Reconstruction we're in now seeks to remedy the last vestiges of slavery, and we can call that systemic and structural racism. What we have to look forward to and what we must work toward is eliminating and doing the very thing King called for, eliminating structural systemic racism by restructuring the social edifice through a revolution of values. That is why it's so important to your last question, Jesse, of what should we know and what can we do? We should fully understand what slavery is, what it has done, and what it is still doing, not only to we, people of African descent, but to the entire globe. And we must find ways to restructure the social edifice, to infuse this revolution of values. And Jesse, that's what the third Reconstruction is all about. It is about coming together as a people, uniting with other peoples of the world as one human family in the world house to construct that world house as a just and peaceful place to live.
Johnny, that's, I can't think of more hopeful words than the ones that you've just attempted to express. And we are going to make room, of course, at the end of our show for you to offer your word of hope. I just want to say, though, that I've picked up on a slightly different pattern on the question of the racial timeline of history, in that if first Reconstruction is from 1865 or from the Reconstruction Amendments to 1877, or crown jewel of the end of first Reconstruction, in the negative, of course, is the Plessy versus Ferguson decision of 1896. We need Brown versus the Board of Education to put an end to segregation. We need equal protection under the laws and interpretation of the 14th Amendment. And arguably, from 1954, which does encapsulate and incorporate the civil rights movement, all the way to the present is second Reconstruction. And I'm afraid, like Stevie Wonder sang in the Songs in the Key of Life, that the world is in need of love today. The hate is all around, breaking many hearts. And with that said, between Reconstruction periods, there is always a period of Jim Crow. How long it will last, I do not know. But that we cannot hop from second Reconstruction to third Reconstruction. That we are quickly entering into a Jim Crow that Jim Clyburn acknowledges, that the CBC acknowledges, that I have acknowledged, that many are coming to terms with, as we lose diversity, equity, and inclusion, as we lose many of the hard-fought gains, and we look at the backlash and white resistance, which is not unlike the backlash and white resistance after first Reconstruction that ushered in first Jim Crow. Now, with that said, someone burned a cross in Grant Park in Chicago last night. And if that doesn't give you any indication of where we are positioning ourselves, I don't think anything can. With that said, Dr. Johnny Mack, we have about 3 minutes until the end of our show, and just about 3 minutes before I begin a 13-hour drive. Johnny, a word of hope.
Well, I'm really delighted to talk about this word of hope, Jesse, because despite notwithstanding what we've said about slavery and what people of African descent have endured, there is some hope in the passing of this resolution. It's championship by President Mahama of Ghana, calling this conference next week, assembling scholars, activists, statesmen, and even ordinary citizens to talk about, to think about, to strategize on how to implement this resolution, not just in moral terms, Jesse, but in very practical action terms that do the very thing, once again, that Martin Luther King Jr. called for. If we're really going to eradicate slavery from the face of the earth, that will be a process. It won't be an act. And that process will not come from politics. It will not come from business. It will come from the people of the earth. People, ordinary citizens like you and me. And therein lies my hope.
I love you, Johnny, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Ditto.
I look forward to seeing you next week. More on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, more on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward. Until then, I'll see you tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon on Fat Meat Fridays.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.